Stefon Diggs' legal battle just took a dramatic turn after 100 pages of private text entered the case. While fans think they know what the messages reveal, court records tell a different story. But one text became the focus behind closed doors, and you'll want to stay with me to see why it matters. The filing landed this week, and it didn't take long to spread. According to court documents obtained by TMZ, Stefon Diggs' accuser, Christopher Griffith, claims he produced over 100 pages of communications, including texts on iMessage and Instagram, between himself and Diggs. That's not a rumor. That's not a leaked screenshot from a burner account. That's a sworn filing sitting inside an active civil case. The timing matters. This didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of a fight over discovery. The filing comes after Diggs argued Griffith had not produced Instagram messages during discovery. Griffith's response contends that Diggs already possesses those messages. Diggs has maintained that he can no longer access the conversation because Griffith blocked him on Instagram, prompting his legal team to ask the court to order Griffith to provide the records. So picture that exchange for a second. Diggs' lawyers go to a judge and say Griffith is hiding messages. Griffith's camp turns around and says, essentially, you already have them. We've got over 100 pages sitting right here. That's not a quiet correction. That's a public on-the-record swing back at the guy who's suing you. And this isn't some fringe blog running with a screenshot. Multiple outlets picked it up within hours of each other. Yahoo Sports, Complex, Hot New Hip Hop, Clutch Points, AOL, all pointing back to the same court filing. According to TMZ, Griffith submitted 100 pages worth of messages to the court this week in response to Diggs claiming he was blocked by Griffith on Instagram and could not access the messages himself. When a story gets confirmed by that many separate sports and legal desks off the same document, it stops being noise. It becomes part of the record. Here's where it gets heavier. This isn't just a spat about missing screenshots. The messages Griffith is pointing to are supposed to back up an allegation that's about as serious as it gets. Griffith accused Diggs of drugging, sexually assaulting, and conspiring to kill him in 2025. And according to Griffith, Diggs conspired to have him killed in an effort to suppress his gay bisexual secrets from becoming exposed. That's the backbone of the countersuit. The 100 pages aren't random chatter. They're supposed to be the connective tissue between two people who both agree they talked, exchanged messages, and had some kind of relationship, but violently disagree on what happened inside Diggs' house. Diggs isn't sitting quiet on any of this. Long before Griffith handed anything to the court, Diggs had already gone on offense. Diggs sued Christopher Griffith for defamation in October 2025, claiming that Griffith was spreading lies about him. A month later, Griffith answered with his own filing. Griffith filed a countersuit in November 2025, alleging that he had been drugged and sexually assaulted at the wide receiver's home. Diggs has denied that this ever happened. So there are two active claims sitting on top of each other in the same case. Diggs says Griffith lied for attention. Griffith says Diggs drugged him and had people come after him to keep him quiet. And now, in the middle of that standoff, one side has walked into court holding 100 pages of private conversation and said, here's my receipts. What makes this moment sting a little more for Diggs is the backdrop it's landing on. He's not some unknown free agent trying to catch on with a practice squad. After being released by the New England Patriots in March, wide receiver Stefon Diggs established himself as one of the most coveted free agents in the NFL, and in May, the former Patriots star was found not guilty of felony strangulation, assault, and battery charges by a jury at Norfolk County District Court. He remains unsigned, and now his legal issues continue. Think about that sequence. He walks out of a Massachusetts courtroom cleared of a felony. The league reviews his conduct and closes the file. Teams start circling him again in free agency. And right as that window opens back up, this filing drops. 100 pages of messages tied to an entirely separate allegation, timed almost perfectly to follow him into every front office conversation happening about his future. There's also the piece nobody's talking about as much. The messages aren't just texts about a night out. Part of what's driving this fight is a claim buried in earlier reporting that Griffith stated in a 2023 police report that Diggs provided him with candy he believed was laced with drugs without his knowledge. If any of that shows up inside those 100 pages in his own words, that's the kind of detail a judge doesn't just skim past. Diggs' legal team clearly understood the stakes of this exact scenario, which is why they pushed so hard on the missing Instagram messages in the first place. If Griffith really is holding conversations that support the timeline he's laid out, the club, the house, the moment he says everything happened, then blocking access wouldn't just be inconvenient for Diggs. It could look like something being kept out of reach on purpose. That's the accusation buried underneath the procedural language. Not just give me the texts, but why did you make sure I couldn't see them until now? And Griffith's side isn't backing off that framing. By handing over the pages voluntarily and loudly, through a filing that was clearly built to be picked up by press, Griffith's camp is telling the court and the public at the same time, we're not hiding anything. We're not stalling. Here's the paper trail. Go read it. That's the moment we're in right now. Not a verdict, not a trial date. 100 pages sitting in a Massachusetts court file with two very different men insisting those same words prove two very different stories. To understand how they got 2 years and multiple lawsuits deep into this fight, you have to go back to where it actually started. A charity basketball game, a house in the DC area, and one night in 2023 that neither side has ever agreed on. Strip away the court filings for a second and go back to where this entire thing was born, May 2023. A charity basketball event, and what happened after it. According to Griffith's version, laid out across multiple filings, the night started innocently enough and ended somewhere neither side can agree on. Griffith claimed that Diggs and others went to a DC club before heading to the NFL player's home, where he alleges the assault took place. Not a random encounter, not a stranger. A group that included Diggs, moving from a public venue to a private one, ending at a house. From there, Griffith's account gets more specific and more damaging. Griffith claims the All-Pro receiver drugged and sexually assaulted him on May 22, 2023, and conspired to have him killed, to suppress his gay bisexual secrets from becoming exposed. That's the full weight of the allegation. Not just a claim of assault, but a claim that Diggs tried to silence him afterward, permanently. Diggs' response has been consistent from the jump. None of it happened, and Griffith is inventing it. In October, Diggs filed a defamation lawsuit against Griffith, accusing the influencer of fabricating the allegations for attention, claiming Griffith intentionally and knowingly lied for online clout, and that the accusations caused serious damage to his reputation. That's not a passive denial. That's Diggs going to court first, trying to get ahead of the story by painting Griffith as someone chasing attention rather than justice. But Griffith didn't back down after that filing. He escalated. Griffith, meanwhile, has doubled down in a countersuit, maintaining that he was the victim and accusing Diggs of trying to silence him through legal action. In Griffith's telling, the defamation suit itself is part of the pattern, another attempt through the courts this time instead of through people showing up in person to make him stop talking. That people showing up in person part isn't a throwaway line either. There's an earlier chapter to this fight that a lot of casual observers missed. The legal conflict grew in October 2024 after Griffith filed a separate claim against Darius Diggs, Stefon Diggs' brother, accusing him of an alleged elevator attack aimed at silencing him. So a full year before the defamation suit and countersuit even existed, Griffith says he was already being confronted by people connected to Diggs, this time inside an elevator, not a courtroom. That detail changes how you read everything that came after. If Griffith's claim about the elevator holds any weight, then by the time Diggs filed his defamation suit in October 2025, Griffith already had a full year of what he considered pressure and intimidation behind him. That's the emotional core of his countersuit. Not just he assaulted me, but and then his family tried to keep me quiet, and now he's suing me for talking about it. The formal legal record locks the dates in place. On October 1, 2025, Diggs filed a libel lawsuit against Griffith, contesting the accusations made against him. A month or so later, Griffith answered in kind. Diggs sued Christopher Griffith for defamation in October 2025, claiming that Griffith was spreading lies about him. And Griffith filed a countersuit in November 2025, alleging that he had been drugged and sexually assaulted at the wide receiver's home. Diggs has denied that this ever happened. Once both sides had filed, the case stopped being a private dispute and became a full legal grind, the kind where every scrap of communication becomes ammunition. That's exactly the phase we're in now with the 100 pages. But it's worth pointing out, this discovery fight isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening while Griffith's side is simultaneously pushing for something much bigger, access to Diggs' money. Now, the wide receiver could be forced to open his books. Christopher Blake Griffith, the social media personality at the center of the case, is asking a judge to force Diggs to hand over his financial records as part of the ongoing dispute. Think about what that means strategically. Griffith's team isn't just trying to prove the assault happened. They're building toward a number, a dollar figure they'll eventually ask a jury or a settlement negotiation to attach to it. And to get there, they want to see exactly what Diggs is worth. According to court filings, Griffith's legal team filed a motion to compel Diggs to produce evidence showing how the allegations have impacted him financially, and Griffith claims Diggs has been dragging his feet in the discovery process. So on one side of the ledger, Diggs is trying to force Griffith to hand over Instagram messages he says are being withheld. On the other side, Griffith's team is trying to force Diggs to hand over his financial records. Both sides are accusing the other of stonewalling. Both sides are using the court to pry open information. The other doesn't want to give up voluntarily. That's what 100 pages of text messages looks like. When it lands in the middle of a fight like that, not a bombshell dropped out of nowhere, but one more move in a chess match that's been building for over a year. And there's a reason neither side can afford to blink. If Griffith's messages hold up under scrutiny, if the tone, the timeline, the details line up with what he's alleged in his filings. That's exactly the kind of corroboration that turns a he said civil case into something a jury could actually side with. If they don't hold up, if the messages read casual, friendly, inconsistent with an assault claim, that's exactly the ammunition Diggs' defamation case needs. Both outcomes are sitting inside those same 100 pages, and right now, only the lawyers and the judge have actually read them. That's the tension driving this case forward. Not just an accusation, but a fight over who controls the evidence that could prove or dismantle it. And Griffith isn't the only person who stepped forward this year to accuse Diggs of something ugly behind closed doors, which is where this story gets even messier. Here's the part of this story that makes the 100 pages hit differently. Griffith isn't the only accuser Diggs has been dealing with. This case didn't erupt in isolation. It landed on top of a stretch where Diggs has been named in dispute after dispute, each one alleging some version of the same thing, that people around him get hurt, and he doesn't answer for it. Start with the one that actually went to a jury. In December 2025, Diggs' personal chef accused him of putting his hands on her. During an argument over money, the case centered on a Deceit 2 encounter at Diggs' home in Dedham, where Jamila Adams, a former live-in personal chef who is known as Mila, testified that he slapped and choked her during an argument and told jurors he smacked me with an open hand before wrapping his arm around her neck and choking her, leaving her struggling to breathe. That's not a vague accusation. That's a woman on a witness stand, under oath, describing exactly what she says happened inside his home. Adams didn't just describe the alleged assault. She described the relationship that came before it. She described what she called a complicated relationship, saying it had previously been sexual, but was not at the time of the alleged assault, and said that she met Diggs in 2022 on Instagram, and that the two became friends, at times friends with benefits, before she was later hired to live in his home and prepare his meals during the football season. So this wasn't a stranger making an accusation. It was someone who'd lived in his house, who'd been paid by him, who'd been close to him personally, turning around and telling a jury he hurt her. Diggs' team fought it hard, and they won. A Massachusetts jury on Tuesday acquitted former New England Patriots wide receiver Stefon Diggs of charges that he assaulted a live-in chef who had been accused of slapping and choking Jamila Adams on DCZ2 at his home in Dedham, and the jury cleared him of one felony charge of strangulation and a misdemeanor charge of assault and battery. His attorney didn't hold back afterward either, framing the entire case as an attempt to weaponize a serious issue for money, telling reporters that domestic violence claims shouldn't be used as a tool to extract a payout, and that he believed the jury saw through it. But acquittal isn't the same as the story disappearing. The trial exposed how thin the physical evidence actually was on both sides. No photos, no injuries anyone could point to, just testimony against testimony. He said there were no photographs of injuries or any statements between DKXDD2, the day of the alleged attack, and DEHC16, meaning the sole evidence is the word of Jamila Adams, Diggs' chef. That's the exact same dynamic sitting underneath the Griffith case right now. One person's word against another's, which is precisely why 100 pages of text matters so much. It's the difference between another he said, and something a jury can actually hold in their hands. And notice the prosecution in the chef case didn't even pretend their witness was flawless. Adams testified during the trial, And Norfolk Assistant District Attorney Drew Virtue admitted to the jury that she may have come across poorly. That's an unusual thing for a prosecutor to concede about their own accuser. It tells you how contested every inch of this case was. And it's the same battlefield Griffith is walking onto now with his own filing. Then there's the piece that connects everything back to violence outside a courtroom entirely. The Ferrari, just days before the Super Bowl. While Diggs should have been locked in on football, a completely separate lawsuit dropped. The complaint filed Feb 3 states Diggs and the plaintiff had a long-standing business and personal relationship. The plaintiff arranged travel, vehicles, events, and other personal logistics for the NFL star. And Diggs, in July 2024, had asked the plaintiff to arrange the shipment of his Ferrari from Miami to New York to Houston. The car went missing, and according to the lawsuit, instead of the story ending there, it turned into a smear campaign. Law enforcement ultimately determined the car was taken by a third party. The lawsuit claims, but Diggs allegedly continued to tell others that the plaintiff was responsible. That accusation, the man says, tanked his business. And then, according to the complaint, things stopped being just about words. The alleged escalating confrontations came to a head on DCA 4, 2025, at Tootsie's Cabaret in Miami, where two alleged members in Stefon Diggs' circle approached the plaintiff by the doorway of a private room. After an exchange, one of the men allegedly punched the plaintiff in the face without warning, provocation, or legal justification. The plaintiff retreated into the private room, where a friend and associate was seated, before both men returned to the hallway. The injuries weren't minor either. Court filings state that the man sustained serious and permanent physical injuries, including a torn ACL, a partially torn MCL, and facial injuries. What makes that lawsuit sting in the context of everything else is who else it names. The plaintiff accuses Trevon Diggs and Darez Diggs of aiding and abetting the assault, and accuses Stefon Diggs of vicarious liability, since Stefon Diggs supposedly had the ability to control, direct, or stop the alleged conduct of his affiliates. Not that Stefon threw a punch, nobody claims that, but that he was the center of gravity, the person whose words set the whole chain of events in motion, and who allegedly could have stopped it and didn't. Add it up. A chef who says she was choked over unpaid wages, an associate who says he was falsely blamed for a stolen Ferrari, and then beaten in a nightclub hallway while Diggs' brother watched. And now Griffith saying he was drugged, assaulted, and then targeted by an elevator confrontation to keep him quiet. 3 separate people, 3 separate years, 3 separate courtrooms, all circling the same name. Diggs beat the chef case outright. The Ferrari case and the Griffith case are both still open, both still fighting over evidence, both still unresolved. That's the landscape. The 100 pages of texts just dropped into, not an isolated fight, but the latest chapter in a run of legal battles. That's followed Diggs through the best football stretch of his career, which raises the obvious question everyone in league circles has been asking quietly for months. How is a player facing this much legal exposure still one of the most sought-after free agents on the market? Here's the part that confuses people from the outside. None of this has actually slowed Diggs down on the field. If anything, the timeline runs in the opposite direction you'd expect. While the lawsuits piled up, his football got better. Go back to the season that set all of this in motion. Diggs signed with New England on a 3-year deal worth $69 million, and by the time the season ended, he turned in one of the best years of his career. Last season, he earned a PFN WR impact score of 82.9, which ranked number 7 in the league. He totaled 85 receptions, 4 touchdowns, and 1,013 receiving yards, the 7th 1,000-yard season of his career, while helping the Patriots reach Super Bowl LX. Read that again. 7th 1,000-yard season, a Super Bowl appearance, all while a chef was preparing to testify against him in a Massachusetts courtroom, while a former associate was filing suit over a stolen Ferrari and a nightclub beating, and while Griffith's countersuit sat active in the background the entire year. The man was doing all of that off the field and still balling out on it. The league actually looked into him formally, and even that didn't produce a suspension. After Diggs was found not guilty of felony strangulation, assault, and battery charges in May, the league closed its review of the wide receiver's conduct in June, determining that there was insufficient evidence of a personal conduct policy violation. That's the NFL's own internal process, separate from the criminal courts, and it came back with nothing that warranted discipline. So once free agency opened, Teams didn't treat him like a risk to avoid. They treated him like a name worth chasing. Diggs has been linked with several teams in free agency, including the Washington Commanders. There's also been open chatter about a reunion with his old quarterback in Buffalo, the kind of speculation that only happens around players teams still genuinely want. With the Patriots cutting ties and Bills' WR production slipping, league voices are asking, is a Diggs-Josh Allen encore exactly what Buffalo needs? Even his own legal team leaned into that confidence the moment the Chef trial ended. Standing outside the courthouse, one of his attorneys made it plain that they expected this verdict to translate directly into a contract. Any team that signs him will be lucky to have him, one of Diggs' attorneys said following the trial. We are very pleased and happy that Stefon will continue on and play football in the National Football League. That's not just legal spin. That's a team of lawyers telling the football world directly that none of this should cost him a roster spot. And in some strange way, his personal life has kept pace with the noise instead of getting buried under it. Even in the middle of the Ferrari lawsuit dropping days before the Super Bowl, Diggs was still very publicly in the news for a completely different reason: his relationship. Despite the surrounding noise, Diggs has remained a focal point of the media this week for more personal reasons, recently paying a public tribute to his girlfriend and the mother of his sixth child, Cardi B. A defamation suit, a strangulation charge, and a stolen Ferrari lawsuit all in the same stretch. And he's still landing entertainment headlines for his family life in the same news cycle. That's the contradiction sitting at the center of this entire saga. On paper, Diggs looks like a player carrying more active legal exposure than almost anyone in the league right now. An acquitted felony charge, an open defamation and sexual assault countersuit, and a separate assault and defamation lawsuit involving his own brothers. And yet his on-field value hasn't dropped. His market hasn't dried up, and his personal brand keeps generating headlines that have nothing to do with any of it. Some people around the league will tell you that's just how it works when you're a top-tier receiver. Production buys patience that ordinary players don't get. Others will tell you it's only a matter of time before one of these open cases lands in a way that actually costs him something real. Whether that's a suspension, a settlement number big enough to make headlines, or a verdict that goes the other way. Right now, both of those futures are still on the table, and the 100 pages of texts sitting in Griffith's filing might be the thing that decides which one it becomes. Because unlike the Chef trial, which is closed and done, the Griffith case and the Ferrari lawsuit are both still moving. Discovery fights, financial record requests, evidence handoffs, all of it still unresolved, all of it still capable of shifting the ground under Diggs' feet at any point between now and whenever a team finally puts a signature on a contract. So where does this actually go from here? The messages are filed, the judge has them, and the next move belongs to the court, not the internet. The process itself is mechanical, but it's the kind of mechanical that changes everything once it's finished. The next steps of the case will involve the judge looking over the evidence and then deciding the next steps. That's it. No dramatic reveal, no press conference, just a judge alone, reading through 100 pages of iMessage and Instagram threads between two men who agree almost on nothing except that the conversation happened. What that judge decides matters more than any headline that's come out of this case so far. If the message is read the way Griffith says they do, consistent with drugging, consistent with an assault, consistent with a cover-up attempt afterward, that reshapes the entire defamation suit Diggs filed against him. Suddenly, Diggs isn't just defending his name, he's explaining his own words back to him in a courtroom. If the messages read the opposite way, casual, warm, nothing that lines up with the allegation, that becomes the centerpiece of Diggs' entire case that Griffith invented this for attention. Either way, this stopped being a story you can settle with a tweet a long time ago. Diggs already has a financial records fight hanging over him in this same case, with Griffith's team pushing to see exactly what an accusation like this has cost him in real dollars. Christopher Blake Griffith, the social media personality at the center of the case, is asking a judge to force Diggs to hand over his financial records as part of the ongoing dispute. That request doesn't go away just because the text messages are filed. If anything, it gets stronger, because now there's a document trail a jury could eventually be asked to weigh against a number. And this case isn't happening in isolation from the rest of what's been following him. The Ferrari lawsuit is still sitting active in Miami-Dade, still naming his brothers, still seeking more than $100,000 in damages over an assault Diggs allegedly never threw a punch in, but is accused of enabling. Case status: active litigation, no trial date set. Nobody's resolved that one either. 2 open cases, 2 separate sets of allegations, 2 separate sets of lawyers all working at the same time, all pulling Diggs' name back into headlines every few weeks, whether he wants it there or not. What's clear is that Griffith isn't backing down, and neither is Diggs. Griffith went from a police report in 2023 to an elevator confrontation claim against Diggs' brother in 2024, to a full countersuit in 2025, to 100 pages of text messages handed to a judge in 2026. That's not someone quietly making a claim and hoping it sticks. That's someone building a paper trail, piece by piece, for years. And Diggs has answered every single step of that with lawyers, filings, and denials of his own, refusing to let any of it go unanswered. The Chef case showed exactly how these things can end: a 2-day trial, less than 2 hours of deliberation, and a full acquittal that let Diggs walk straight back into free agency with his value intact. But the Griffith case isn't the Chef case. There's no criminal charge here yet. This is civil, which means a different burden of proof, a slower grind, and no single dramatic day in court that ends it all at once. It ends in motions, filings, maybe a settlement, maybe a trial date years from now. So Diggs keeps training, teams keep calling, his name keeps showing up on offers and reunion rumors, right alongside case numbers and motions to compel. And somewhere in a Massachusetts courthouse, 100 pages of messages between 2 men sit waiting for a judge to decide what they actually prove. That verdict, whenever it lands, is the piece of this story that's still unwritten. The one thing about Stefon Diggs' next chapter that neither side gets to control alone. Stefon Diggs, male sexual assault accuser, claims he turned over text evidence. TMZ. Stefon Diggs lawsuit, accuser hands over 100 pages of texts. Complex. Stefon Diggs, male sexual assault accuser, claims he turned over text evidence. Yahoo Sports. Stefon Diggs legal trouble continues. Yahoo Sports PFN. Stefon Diggs, male accuser, provides text as evidence. AOL. Stefon Diggs, sexual assault accuser, submits 100 pages of text messages. Hot New Hip Hop. Stefon Diggs' male sexual assault accuser allegedly turns over countless texts. Clutch points. Influencer accusing Stefon Diggs of sexual assault wants NFL star to fork over his financial records. Outkick. Jury finds Stefon Diggs not guilty of assault. Strangulation. ESPN. Stefon Diggs found not guilty after being charged with assault. Strangulation. Yahoo Sports. NFL star Stefon Diggs found not guilty of assaulting his live-in chef. NBC News. Stefon Diggs found not guilty of assaulting and strangling his former live-in chef. Boston Globe. Stefon Diggs found not guilty of assault. Strangulation charges. CBS Sports. Former Patriots WR Stefon Diggs found not guilty of assaulting his private chef. NFL.com. Stefon Diggs hit with civil lawsuit tied to alleged Ferrari theft. Black Enterprise. Stefon Diggs assault lawsuit all about lawyer. Stefon Diggs facing lawsuit for defamation and assault. Baller alert. Stefon Diggs hit with assault lawsuit right before the Super Bowl. Complex. New bombshell lawsuit against Stefon Diggs. Bossip. Patriots WR Stefon Diggs faces new legal battle days before Super Bowl LX. Heavy. Stefon Diggs faces more legal trouble 2 days before Super Bowl LX parade. Patriots wide receiver Stefon Diggs sued in Florida days before Super Bowl. Boston Globe. https://www.bostonglobe.com. Sleet 2026. Sleet Stefon Sports. Stefon Diggs defamation